is released, probation staff are working hard to prepare release plans, including permanent and temporary accommodation. If an offender is at risk of homelessness upon release, they will be housed in community accommodation, and we expect to provide housing for the majority of offenders using existing provision. But should there not be enough provision, I have authorised probation directors to make use of alternative arrangements, including budget hotels, as a temporary measure for the cases that we will see in the next few weeks.
Dame Priti Patel.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. During the debate in July around early prisoner release, the impact assessment produced suggests that there'd be 5,500 less prison places than planned for, due to make the capital savings that were discussed at the time. When I raised this with the Secretary of State, she did say that this would be under review. Can she now confirm that it's the government's intention to cut back prison places by 5,500 over the medium and long term?
The Right Honourable Lady will know that I've committed to publishing a 10-year capacity strategy. There are also live discussions as part of the budget and spending review process. We have committed to delivering the shortfall of 14,000 places in our prison system that the previous government failed to deliver. That is a commitment we have given. Those conversations are live conversations. I will report to the House in due course, but we will be publishing a 10-year capacity strategy before the end of the year.
Richard Tice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can the Secretary of State explain why, when there are some 10,000 foreign criminals blocking up space in our jails, why aren't they being removed and deported, simultaneously saving the British taxpayer billions of pounds every year and having the support of millions of British voters? Here.
They are being deported. They will continue to be deported. Nothing will change as far as deportation of foreign national offenders is concerned, but the inheritance that we had from the previous government meant we had to take further additional measures. The answer won't come from deportation of foreign national offenders alone, but it is very much part of the picture.
We come to the Shadow Secretary, Adega.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under the early release scheme that the Secretary of State designed the detail of starting today, how many people will be eligible to be released at the 40% point who have been sentenced for offences, for example, under Section 20 GBH, Section 47 ABH of the Offence Against the Person Act 1861, both of which carry a maximum sentence of 5 years, but more often a sentence will be awarded that is less than 5 years?
Well, the Shadow Lord Chancellor will know that we have made important exclusions to the design of this policy, and all those who have committed serious offences, who have been sentenced to 4 years or more, will be excluded from this policy. He will know that I will not be able to give details on the specific mix of offences per offender, but those offences that should be included that relate to serious violence or sexual offences have been excluded from this policy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm grateful to the Secretary of State, but I have the statutory instrument and the list of exclusions on the schedule here, and those offences are not specifically excluded in that list of exclusions. So what I fear will be deeply disappointing is that many domestic abusers will potentially actually be considered convicted for those offences, have received fewer than 5 years, and therefore potentially be eligible for early release. And her scheme, as I say, does not explicitly exclude those offences. Given that, the reality is that the government's claim domestic abusers won't be eligible to benefit from this scheme will ring very hollow to victims of domestic abuse and the wider public, won't it?
I say with respect to the Shadow Lord Chancellor, what will ring hollow to members of the public is the Tory party's newfound commitment to exclusions for domestic abuse, the sheer hypocrisy of talking about exclusions to this policy when he was himself a minister in the previous government who brought in the end of custody supervised licence scheme, which had no exclusions relating to domestic abuse whatsoever. And in fact, and he says he talks about the governor lock from his sedentary position. He knows full well that was an attempt to take the blame away from ministerial decision making and place it with governors, something I'm not sure was much appreciated by those who are currently running our prisons. We have taken every step available to us and every mechanism available to us to exclude offences connected to domestic abuse, and crucially, something that the previous government never did, give the probation service time to prepare.
Liberal Democrat spokesman Lee Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yeah. It's quite clear our prisons are at breaking point. The Conservatives' failure to tackle the court's backlog has directly contributed to prison overcrowding. Thanks to their neglect and mismanagement, the government have been left with no choice but to take these measures. However, Mr. Speaker, the Lord Chancellor said in her statement in July that these measures would be reviewed within 18 months of implementation, at the very latest in March 2026. That's a long time away, particularly given the various stories we're hearing about certain individuals being released. So will the Secretary of State once again confirm that no dangerous criminals will be released early?
Let me say to the honourable gentleman, we have taken every measure available to us to exclude offences from this measure. That includes serious violence, sexual violence, offences connected to domestic abuse, all have been excluded, as are terror offences and so on. He will know the full list of exclusions. We will work with our probation service, who have done a heroic amount of work over the summer in order to deliver this policy going forward in the coming months. We will also work very closely with criminal justice system partners as well to make sure that the rollout of this scheme is as safe as possible. So we've taken every measure. We will continue to keep that under review, and I will keep the House updated in due course.
We need to speed up a little. We're still only going to question 2. Bobby Dean.
Number 2, please, Mr. Speaker.
With permission, Mr. Speaker, I will answer questions 2, 9 and 15 together. The honourable member is right to focus on reducing reoffending. Nearly 80% of offending is reoffending at an immense cost to the taxpayer and communities. But as the Lord Chancellor has already said, we've inherited a very difficult situation in relation to prison capacity, which makes it harder to address the rehabilitation needs of prisoners. But have no doubt that this government will roll its sleeves up and get on with that job of reducing reoffending.
Dean.
I thank the Minister for his answer. My point actually speaks to what he addressed in his statement. The lack of prison capacity means that some people are locked up in their cells for 22 or 23 hours a day. And so that means many prisons are ranked insufficient or poor for delivering purposeful activities like education and training. So how does the Minister plan to address this whilst we still have a bulging prison population? How are we going to increase the provision of those purposeful activities?
We're taking the hard decisions that are necessary to create the space and capacity in the prison service to address this. He's right that HMIP's number one thing to be addressed in their latest report was this issue about providing sufficient purposeful activity. We know that education and employment helps to reduce the chance of reoffending significantly, and that's what we will work to do with the prison and probation service.
Can I just say to the Minister, he's meant to sit down. I know he's enjoying the dispatch box on his return, but please don't over-enjoy it. Monica Harding.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As my honourable friend referred to, the Chief Inspector of Prisons this morning said we find prisoners banged up in their cells sometimes for up to 22 hours a day, and classrooms that are empty, workshops that are empty, and education and training simply isn't given the priority that it should in our prisons. Does the Secretary of State therefore agree that it is time to introduce a proper, workable plan to improve the rehabilitation of people leaving prison to cut reoffending?
As my own self demonstrates that training and education are very important in whatever role you're taking on. So I agree wholeheartedly with what the member said.
Paul Davis.
Addressing literacy in UK prisons is crucial for successful rehabilitation. Improved literacy skills empower inmates with better job prospects, aiding their reintegration into society. Education fosters personal growth, self-esteem and decision-making abilities, which are essential for a crime-free life. Investing in prison literacy programmes is a vital step towards creating safer communities and offering inmates a genuine second chance. Can I ask the Minister what comprehensive strategies are being implemented to address this issue?
Well, the honourable member is exactly right that literacy and numeracy are crucial issues. And when I was pleased to visit HMP Humber recently, I saw some excellent best practice going on. And it is important that those programmes are in place and that we learn from best practice and we continue to do our best in that area.
Slaughter.
much, Mr. Speaker. A key driver of